John Lusk here of Lusk Archery Adventures. Series testing, successful hunting. Today I'm going to be testing another Swhacker. I've tested quite a few Swhackers over the years, but I'm going to be testing the 202, which is the 2¼ inch model 2-blade. And I tested this I think in the past, but now I'm going to be testing it with my 2022 protocol. So for that, I'm going to be using my Bowtech CP28, and for some of the shots, my Bowtech SR6. And then I'm using Bishop FOC King arrows for most of the shooting, but then I'll be using the Bishop FAD eliminators for the really hard impact shots. So let's zoom on in here and go through some of the design features and specifications of this Swhacker 202, and then put it to the test and see how it performs. Here's a good look at the 202. And a few things you notice right off the bat is it's got a very sleek design, right? There's very little exposed blade, which means it's going to be fairly forgiving in flight. It's going to be a good flyer. Then also you notice that it's really long, and that's because it's got pretty long blades and they're all housed inside that ferrule. But that's going to mean that it's going to be a little bit of a weaker ferrule on a hard impact than it would be if it were a bit shorter. But it's got this nice chiseled tip with a cutting diameter of 0.31 inches, and that's a hardened steel. And then the blades themselves are 0.032 inches thick, and they're stainless steel as well. Now they're held in place with this O-ring, and you do want to make sure that you slide these O-rings all the way down to where they're seated right above these little blades here, okay, the opening blades. And these are sharpened. They have a little, they're not super sharp, but they have a little bit of a single bevel sharpening to them. But you want this O-ring to go all the way down, and it's hard to get down there. You got to keep kind of going around and around and around to get down. But I kind of like that because when you push it into your quiver, you don't have to worry about them bulging out, okay? There's an advantage to that. On impact, this head penetrates to this point, and then these blades cut initially through the hide. And then after they cut, they break off and they cut this O-ring, and then the blades sweep back into their full open position. It doesn't even fit on the screen here, okay? And that's, again, a cutting diameter of 2¼ inches. So 2¼ inches that way, and then 0.31 inches that way makes it a sizable cut. Now, you'll notice that the ferrule is pretty long and vented there and pretty thin right here at the end. That's going to give me a bit of concern about durability and hard impact. And yet it's going to be cutting a lot of nice tissue. Now, one of the things I really like about them is that these blades in the closed position, you're going to get a 1-inch cut, okay? And that's not super big, but hey, that's 1 inch. That's what a lot of smaller 2-blade, fixed blade heads are. It's just a 1-inch cut. So you get that through the hide, and then after penetrating through, you expose what's called the virgin blades, because these blades have not been dulled at all by that initial penetration in the hide, giving them kind of a 1-2 punch of sharpness throughout the rest of the medium there. So then you see them in their open position, and these little back blades are the things that butt up against your insert or your arrow shaft there, okay, to hold them in the open position. So really eager to put this head to the test and see how it performs. $200. It penetrated 6¾ inches. $325. It penetrated through 46 layers, but I do want to note that a lot of that penetration was due to that long, narrow tip and not actually the blades cutting. The initial cut by design is the head in the closed position, so it's a 1-inch long cut. It held up really well to 3 shots through the MDF, except you can see the blades did start to curve backwards. They start to look like the Levi Morgan model, where they have a curve to them rather than being straight. Here's the head after 2 shots through the steel plate. And I wanted to show it in this way because the picture didn't really catch it all. You can see that it got really narrow. That aluminum ferrule got squished by the steel plate there, and that's why you got a bit of a wobble. But the blades held up. They just they bent. They bent back and they bent laterally too. So you can't close them anymore. That's as far as they'll close. But they did stay intact. And they held their edge relatively well through both shots of the steel plate. And then here's a look at the steel plate and the holes that the head made in them. So the Swhacker did pretty well through the MDF and the steel plate. I was impressed with that. But in that hard impact on the center block, you can see it just did not do well. Kind of looks like a bird flying there. But the ferrule, this aluminum, just bent so much so that it just broke off. Now the tip did embed in the concrete, and so that's good. But the rest of it just did not hold up to that. Now again, that's not the most important test, right? I mean, it held up well through 3 shots in the MDF and pretty well through 2 shots in the steel plate. Those are much more important, but it is good to know the outer limit of what this head can handle, and a 0 penetration test is just not in its wheelhouse. So what do you think of this Swhacker 202? Hey, I tell you, it exceeded my expectations. I've come to really appreciate some of the things that Swhacker does. If you're not looking for a really big entrance hole and you have enough kinetic energy to really drive it deeply and benefit from that full blade opening, then this, might be a really good fit for you. So check out the score sheet and see how it performed in each of the areas that matter to you the most, and see if this might be a good fit for you.